Beaver County is my guest. Good to see you again. How you been?
Doing fine, Eddie. Thank you very much.
I was told, and I know nothing about this, I was told that you have a major announcement or some sort of announcement or a major prize. Do you want to do that now or do you want to tease people?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's been, I've been in office for 8 years now.
All right.
And we start circulating petitions for reelection starting on Tuesday. And I've not made a formal announcement as to whether I'm running for reelection or not. So I thought that this would be a pretty good forum
Okay.
to let people know that I have decided to run for another term. So I just wanted to come on here and let the public know.
So your hat's in the ring again.
My hat's in the ring again, yes.
Was it a difficult decision? Was it something you thought a lot about both sides, or was it pretty clear cut for you?
No, it was hard. I spent about the last year really trying to go through to see whether or not I was going to be able to offer enough to Beaver County to justify me asking for the opportunity to serve them again. And I've really gone through it. And I think we have done some phenomenal work in the county for law enforcement and for justice. And I have a lot of major initiatives that we are working on right now. They're going to take a couple more years to finish. I think I can provide a lot for Beaver County.
Talk about some of the initiatives. I'm going to go back to your one way or the other with it, but talk about the initiatives. If
Okay.
you just announced you're running, you might as well start throwing it out, man.
Sure. Yeah. Just as an example, we've worked with the prosecutors to restructure my office so that we have a special victim unit now. So we have a couple of prosecutors, a couple of detectives that emphasize domestic violence and sex crimes. And
Why was that not the case before? Just not manpower, but budget power?
No, it was, we had fewer cases coming out of COVID. I would say before we had a rape, a child abuse case, maybe one or two a month.
Okay.
We are prosecuting rape cases and child abuse cases at the rate of 2 to 3 a week. I have lawyers with 35 active rape cases on their desk. People don't realize.
You're an attorney. How does a lawyer handle 35 cases of anything?
Well, say you've got 80 cases on your desk, but say
Right.
35, and rape cases go to trial. Rape cases are time-consuming, difficult cases. So we just needed to have prosecutors and detectives to really train and to understand the process of investigation, how to deal with the victims, how to deal with the witnesses, be able to bring those to trial, because at trial, those are very difficult cases because juries don't want to believe that a rape happened. Juries don't want to make a judgment that this boy or this man really did this.
What is it? Is it, oh, no, a human being couldn't do something like that? Is that the
Yes.
thing? Is that it?
Yes, and then if there's any doubt, any blemish on the victim's side, then they hang their hat on that. So you really have to work very hard to corroborate the victim and to use good modern investigative tools to establish the crime, to establish the cause and effect, and you're bringing in expert witnesses to establish the damage. It really is it's a specialty. So we stood up this unit because, again, we have like 34 police departments in the county, and then you add the state police. And so a department makes an arrest or has a suspicion, they need help investigating that to do it right. So we have specialists to help all these departments really prosecute these cases to give those victims the justice that they deserve. And we've been working very hard to develop that program. And I think we're moving far along the path on that. So that's an initiative I'm very proud of and moving forward with.
Which is tougher emotionally to deal with I'm talking about as a litigator, to deal with a sexual assault type case or to deal with a murder case?
I think the sex assault case
Is it tougher?
especially involving children.
Right.
When you have someone who is a very small child, trying to get them to.
It's a completely different
It's
set of criteria for somebody as a witness.
It does. It
Yeah.
destroys the family.
Yeah.
Often you have family members taking sides. If the perpetrator is a member of the family, of some that just don't believe that Uncle Bob could have done that.
Right.
So So that adds another dynamic, and everybody comes out broken. The victims, the witnesses, the entire family comes out needing assistance. And we provide that assistance. We have a great victim support office that comes in there. I introduce court dogs, where we have about 36 trained and approved
Support dogs.
support dogs
Right.
that are certified and insured, and they come into the court to my office, and they sit with the children or with a rape victim, and it just brings the tension level down for this victim who's waiting to be interviewed, waiting to testify, and these. I really feel for the owners of these dogs, because they come in. Say you've got a beautiful dog that just has a great heart,
Right.
that sits on a child's lap while that child is discussing these horrible things. That dog's owner listens to this,
True.
and so they're being traumatized by what they're hearing. But we provide that service because it really helps the victims cope with what is going on with and we're making them remember horrible things when they testify. So it's
David Lozier is my guest. He is the district attorney for Beaver County, and he has just announced that he intends to seek re-election coming up here in 2023. Was the heaviness of your job part of the hesitancy? You said you spent the last year thinking about whether or not you were going to run, and you said it was, can I keep helping Beaver County? But does the crown weigh heavy after a time with such horrible stuff as part of a workday?
I've been able to handle that pretty well emotionally. I have a good support structure between I work with some great professionals in the county. The issue was, am I going to be able to provide sufficient service to continually provide changes and improvements to the county, or have I spent my fuel?
Okay.
And so I needed to go through to make sure that I'm still offering good planning, good future improvements.
What did the DA's office not do as well as you hoped? That's a weird way to phrase it. I apologize. What does the DA's office need to continue to address and continue to improve?
There's a need to maintain a good relationship with every police officer and every victim and witness. When somebody comes in, either an officer with a case that they've started or a victim in a crime, a prosecutor's got to be able to relate to that victim and relate to that witness, to hear them, and not just make them, oh, that's one of 65 cases I have this morning. And that is hard, especially for a younger lawyer,
Right.
who comes in and sometimes they're overwhelmed with what they're seeing and with the cases. So it's really important that we make sure that the police officer knows that this lawyer is hearing these facts now and not just dismissing it as another DUI, or that this victim is being heard, because that's who we're serving. The victims, witnesses, the police officers, we're also affecting justice, right? So you've got to be able to also tell the officer there isn't a case here, and justice demands that this case be closed. You got to be able to have that conversation, and we do that because we're serving the community, not just the victims and witnesses.
If a case is brought to you by an officer and you decide as DA, we're not going to prosecute that case, where typically did the officer's case presentation fall short?
It's often an evidence issue.
Okay.
The Supreme Court, both state and federal, have drawn a lot of narrow pathways for when you can pull a car over for a DUI, when you can interview someone, when you can look in the bag, when you can look at the center console, when you can ask a certain question, just for DUIs. It goes on to every other kind of when can you look at someone's phone? So a lot of times you may have a good case, but if there is a major piece of evidence, it's the only way to prove an element of a crime.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be able to introduce that evidence at trial, and sometimes evidence is suppressed because of the way it was collected. And officers are out there doing the best job they can under trying circumstances. The law is always changing, And that's why we spend so much of our time. Like I had one of my assistant DAs yesterday spend 4 hours with 20 police officers going through the law of body worn cameras to make sure that they understand how they're used, when to turn them on, when to turn them off, how to preserve the data, what you can say on a camera, what you shouldn't say on a camera, because you're protecting the officer and the victim and the witness, and you're documenting a crime. You want to have good evidence. But again, that's us going out to the police departments and helping them train as the law is changing. Body worn cameras.
How often does it happen that somebody comes to you and says, I have this case, and you look at it, and in your intellectual brain, you go, oh, yeah, that dude did that. Then you got to say, we can't take it to court. Talk about the frustration level, because I know we've spoken off the air about this.
Yeah.
You know when people do stuff that are still walking the street, and it's not because they didn't do it, it's because of what you're talking about.
Right.
That's frustrating, isn't it?
It's extremely frustrating because it's hard to sit down with a victim and say that we believe what you're telling us, but I can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And a lot of times you have an officer who is passionate that they've done what they can, but if you can't establish all the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, you have to say either do some more work or walk away from this. And it's hard when there is a victim involved, a family involved. And it's very common with drug deaths, where we do our best to prosecute as many of the drug deaths as we can, where we find the seller of the drug that caused the death. But some of them we just cannot prosecute.
What would be a reason? I sell somebody drugs, they die. You know I did it. What possible reason could there be for you to not prosecute? No physical evidence, or?
Well, you may have the needle, you may have the stamp bag. Let's say what this person bought was half a dozen bags of fentanyl with a Clazy Bozo the Crown symbol on it, right? And then what you do is you figure, our goal is to identify the seller within about 4 hours. Before the seller knows that the person's dead, I want to get to that seller with a confidential informant and buy fentanyl with the same bag and the same mix. And they change mixes. Or maybe I can't get to them for 2 or 3 days. And now instead of a Bozo the Clown, they're selling a Mario.
It's a giant watermelon picture.
Exactly. Or it's a slightly different chemical mix. So we have to prove that the fentanyl was the only thing that killed them, and this person is the only one who sold them fentanyl. And those are hard.
I want to ask you about fentanyl. Is the county getting better dealing with that? Do people that, I don't know if people exist that aren't touched by it, but do people that haven't been touched by an opioid death really understand how bad fentanyl and what's going on, and where are we with that? Are we at least schooling up the people that haven't been forced to be schooled up?
After 500 deaths in 5 years, or actually in about 6 years, we have, I think people are understanding the severity of the problem. You still are baffled when you have someone who is, say, 20, 21 years old and starts using fentanyl. It's like, what in the world were you thinking?
Yeah, you made it to 21 without making that decision.
Yes, yeah. And often, it used to be doctors writing OxyContin prescriptions. They'd drop the prescription, the person would be addicted. Now that really is going away because we've done a real good job of stopping the misprescription of fentanyl.
Pill mills.
We've stopped that. We really have done a good job in Pennsylvania. But the issue now is they've got fentanyl in everything. So some kid who's in college, say he's doing online college somewhere, he's got an exam tomorrow, and he wants a wake me up pill or a go to sleep pill, and so he goes out and he buys 1 or 2 pills from a friend, and he's thinking he's buying a stimulant.
He's buying speed.
Right.
And
what he doesn't know is that's really fentanyl, and they take 1 pill and they're dead. That's what's frustrating.
I'm going to yell at you. You're the DA. I'm going to throw a fit for a second. everybody that gets caught selling stuff to people that kills them should go to prison forever. Rebut that.
I agree with you.
We can't even fight good, man.
No, it ought to be a life sentence. But
You take a life sentence should at least be an option.
Again, you have to prove that they caused the death. But if you're caught selling fentanyl, right? To me, that should be 20 years in prison. Federally, it's probably at least 5. In Pennsylvania, actually right now, they're putting out new sentence guidelines, which reduce that to about maybe 18 months. And probably...
Wait, the new sentence guidelines are reducing it?
Reducing it.
What's the justification for that?
And cocaine is going even lower. But the cocaine now contains fentanyl. So the guy who's selling cocaine realizes that half the cocaine he sells really has fentanyl in it. But the state is reducing the guidelines.
Who decides that at the state level?
With Governor Wolf.
Okay. Well, Shapiro. Wolf did this.
Wolf did this.
Okay.
He appointed a very liberal bunch of academics to a sentencing commission. Like one great judge, one great prosecutor, and a bunch of college professors, all liberals, and they went through the sentencing guidelines, and they restructured it. We're not allowed to talk about prior events. We're not allowed to talk about severe juvenile felonies. We're not allowed to raise anything old, and they, as a general rule, dramatically reduced the standard sentence window. And most judges say a guideline says that when you steal this amount of money, it's 18 to 36 years is the average. Most judges, 18 to 36 months. Most judges will not go beyond that without being forced to. So they have the right to go to, say, 10 years, but they stick to those guidelines because they don't want to be fought on appeal.
I got more questions. I got a lot of questions. David Lozier is my guest, the DA for Beaver County, and he's running for the same job. Not very upwardly mobile focused, are you?
There aren't many jobs above it, so I'm stuck with it.
No, I'd take it with pride. More with David after news on Teleforum.
What do you think's the best love song of all time? You can find out if you tune in and listen to Special Edition, the 1968 VW Bus and the Time Machine with me, Frank Sparks, and Eddie Crow. On Valentine's Day, February the 14th, from 9:10 a.m. to 12 noon. It's all sponsored by Roslyn Candy Castle in New Brighton. Along with hearing some of the greatest moments in music of the mid to late 20th century, you'll have the chance to call in and guess the greatest love song of all time. The winner receives a delicious heart-shaped box of Valentine chocolates from Roseland Candy Castle in New Brighton. Roseland's chocolate and the greatest love songs of all time, along with Beaver County Radio. What could be better?
You brought sunshine to my sky when there was rain.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning. Showers likely today, mainly after 5 p.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 65. And we are under a wind advisory in effect until 7 a.m. tomorrow and can expect wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour. We'll have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after this look at news. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine spoke at a press conference Wednesday evening in regards to the train derailment situation in East Palestine. DeWine was joined by other official personnel, including Beaver County Director of Emergency Services Eric Brewer and East Palestine Police Chief Keith Drabick. Drabick took the podium to announce that the evacuations were lifted.
And the East Palestine Fire Department field is now safe to be in the evacuation area. With the full support and backing of Governor DeWine, I am happy to announce that the evacuation order is now lifted.
Officials said there was no ongoing hazards to water or air in the evacuation radius, which included a portion of Beaver County. A phone number was given for residents to call to request water and air quality checks of their residents if they wish to do so, or to ask toxicology questions.
We have a phone number for you. If you have any questions or concerns, you can call our hotline. It will connect you to a toxicologist who you can ask any questions, discuss concerns. This phone number is 234-542-6474.
Cleanup crews have removed all of the train cars, but there is still a lot of work to be done. Roads are reopened with the exception of Taggart Road past the Ohio line, as crews will be using it for cleanup work. Route 51 and numerous other Beaver County roads are now open. Norfolk Southern will be paying for all damages ensued by the train wreck, and they will continue to investigate the cause of the crash, which is said to be a suspected axle failure at this time. DeWine thanked all of the emergency personnel who handled the potentially catastrophic incident. Could help be on the way for Old Economy Pole to fully operate this summer? Matt Durzik has details from Wednesday's Commissioner's Work Session.
Beaver County Parks and Recreation Director Tony Caltori spoke at Wednesday's work session about a possible agreement that could see the YMCA take over the majority of operations at Old Economy Pool this summer.
They would be interested in a partnership with us paying a management fee where they would manage the pool, test it. We would still be responsible for the maintenance, the water, the electric of the pool, and they would collect the admissions. He sent me a rough draft agreement that I'll share with you guys of what it would look like, but he said that the YMCA would be interested in that, but if you guys would like me to pursue trying to recruit lifeguards at the current salaries, we can do that as well. So the preliminary agreement would be the management fee of $17,000, us paying to the YMCA. They would allow us to still operate the concession stand if we would like to do that, or partner with another nonprofit where they could use that as a fundraiser.
The full story from Wednesday's work session can be found at beavercountyradio.com. From the county courthouse, I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News.
A national news correspondent, Evan Lambert, was arrested during the East Palestine press conference Wednesday evening. Lambert was reporting live on News Nation while Ohio Governor Mike DeWine was speaking at the East Palestine Elementary School gymnasium. Police told Lambert to be quiet and after a brief discussion, arrested him. Beaver County Radio caught the arrest live on video, and it can be viewed on our WBVP-WNBA Facebook page. While being taken away in handcuffs, Lambert commented, "I got arrested for trying to do a live report, telling the people what they need to know." Governor DeWine made a statement afterwards saying that he didn't order the arrest and has no problems with reporters talking while he is.
Let me tell you what I know, which is not very much. I heard some commotion back there, but obviously I couldn't see through there. Jill Del Greco, who is my press secretary, who was here, pulled me out shortly after that and told me just what you just said. So I don't know the facts. If someone was stopped from doing that or told they could not do that, that was wrong. And it was nothing that I authorized, and certainly it would be something that I would not want to see happen.
Following the incident, News Nation reported that Lambert would be held in the Columbiana County Jail until at least Thursday morning and is charged with criminal trespassing and disorderly conduct. It was later revealed that Lambert was released late Wednesday.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM. Along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WNBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
We are under a wind advisory in effect until 7 a.m. tomorrow with wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour. Showers likely mainly after 5 p.m. today, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 65. A chance of showers tonight mainly before 7, otherwise mostly cloudy, going down to a low of 39. Cloudy skies tomorrow with a high near 44, and for the weekend, mostly sunny Saturday with a high near 39 and mostly sunny Sunday with a high near 47. That's a look at the news for now. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WNBA, and streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
It is Teleforum, and the day is absolutely flying. The first hour rather, it was Jim Marshall rapping with the reps. This hour, I'm rapping with the district attorney who wants to be the district attorney again. David J. Lozier has, I'll read the letter. You brought a letter in to make it official. I'm not going to read all of it.
Yeah, it's a long letter.
I would like to announce my intention to seek re-election as Beaver County's district attorney in 2023. Now, what does that require you to do paperwork? I know there's a petition, something you got to do, right?
Right. Starting tomorrow, we can go into the election bureau and get our petitions. And then we can start getting signatures on Tuesday, which
How many
is
you need?
Valentine's Day. I need 250 signatures.
All right.
And in reality, you want to get 2 or 3 times that in case anybody challenges any signatures or petitions. But we only have 3 weeks to do it, and it's always the coldest, wettest, nastiest 3 weeks of the year. So you're out there knocking on doors for 2 hours. The sun goes down at 5:30.
Right.
Nobody wants you to come to their door. Nobody wants you to come to the door on a Sunday. Nobody wants you to come to the door after dark.
Can you not hang out in front of a storefront like selling Girl Scout cookies? Pick it up a little bit. How do you get 250? Because seriously, if you're knocking on doors, I don't even have a front door.
It is work out there to get, because again, you may knock on 50 doors and you get 5 signatures, just because you have to, because people aren't home or the voter isn't home. Some people don't answer their door anymore because people don't answer their doors.
No, I
they
literally
just don't.
I don't have a front door. You've got to get to a front door to get to my front door.
Yeah, so it is a lot of work, and I think that's part of the trap that incumbents create, so that it's harder for a challenger to get the signatures. The guy who's done this before, he knows what neighborhoods, he knows, maybe he has a history with people to get a signature, but it's hard. And it is an obstacle for someone who's coming in for the first time.
Has it gotten easier since you're not coming in for the first time? You've gone through this process more than once already. Name recognition has to mean something, right?
I don't know how many people really pay attention to who the DA is. It may be 20% of the population. Really, most people live their lives, and they don't pay attention to who their congressman is, or their DA, or their state rep. So you're talking to a very narrow subset of people who care.
Are you envious of the ignorance being bliss, or is that frustrating to you as a public official who you want to represent people that want to be represented?
It'd be great to have a way to communicate with people so that they would know that we're doing the best we can as public servants to help them. It's harder now because the print media is collapsing. So like the Beaver County Times, I love the Times. They're doing the best they can, but in this modern world, so few people under the age of 50 receive the newspaper. They don't have the budget, and that's true with all print media. How many people, I wonder how many people actually watch the evening news anymore. You and I grew up with the evening news and newspapers. The average 30-year-old.
5, 6, and 10.
Yeah. Yeah. So the average 30-year-old, they go on TikTok or they go on Facebook or a news feed for 20 seconds. And if you're not the top of the bubble on their news feed, they don't know who the state rep is or that it's important. It's frustrating.
It is. Teleforum on Beaver County Radio, often frustrating. David Lozier is my guest, the district attorney. I want to back up. You were talking about new initiatives.
Right.
Where did the money come from? Because initiatives ain't free. It's like gas.
Right. I've worked very hard with Congressman Lamb when he was in, as well as our state representatives. Representative Matsey, Representative Kale, Representative Marshall were very supportive of my efforts to put together some grant structures to be able to buy the technology that all of our small departments cannot afford. So I got a federal grant through Connor Lamb. That's for about $600,000. That's going to bring a version of a DNA lab to Beaver County. So rather than
$600,000 for one DNA lab.
Well, what it is, it's basically a $200,000 machine that can come up with a DNA profile in about 90 minutes.
What's the current lag? If you had to send something to the current system through the lab, how long?
18 months.
So 90 minutes instead of 18 months.
Yes. So I'll be able to do some DNA testing here in the county. And the other $400,000 is the price of the material to keep this system running and the training and the devices needed to support it. So
the accessories.
The accessories, yes. And I did this me and the DA in Indiana County and out in Cambria County, we're working together to try to create a network of DAs who can work together and develop a database of DNA ourselves. I'm also getting about $200,000 in grant funding to help bring in a drug testing, a piece of equipment that allows us to test for drugs immediately after they're seized, rather than, again, sending stuff off to a lab and waiting 6 months.
You don't even have, because we see on cop shows, they put the chemical in the test tube and they shake it, and that's this. We don't even have that?
We have that, but those aren't as reliable as a laser-powered chromatograph. And plus, now with like fentanyl, you may have 200 analogs of fentanyl. So again, as I talked earlier, let's say that I'm buying a red clown bag from a drug dealer. It's this one version of fentanyl. Another another dealer may be selling a different version, and it's a different analog of fentanyl. So I've got to prove the sources and tie them together. It's faster, it's safer than opening up a container and dropping in a couple of drops and shaking it and waiting a couple minutes. It's a much more reliable machine that I can put in court and say at the preliminary hearing phase, this was a combination of heroin and fentanyl in these amounts. Then I can wait 6 months for the lab to do a fancy expert witness thing, but I can do that immediate test that same day. The same thing with phone equipment. We have the best phone equipment that's available to our detectives. We do 500 or 600 phones a year, and
What makes phone equipment? What makes a detective's phone better than?
No, phone forensics.
Oh, phone forensics. Okay.
So that we have a crime.
Oh, you're talking about data. You're talking about
what's on that
tracing
phone.
it.
Yes. Right.
Do people realize that if they've got a phone in their pocket, somebody can trace them if they want to bad enough? Do you think the average person knows that?
I think they'd rather not think about that.
Okay.
Yeah, but every time you text, every time you make a phone call, if your phone's on, you're walking around the mall, it's talking to other devices. But you need really good equipment to be able to interpret the information on a phone. And we 500 or 600 phones a year at this point, and we're testing phones for the DEA, for the FBI, for other counties, for the Attorney General and State Police, because we have the equipment, because we've invested in that using a lot of good grant funding. Plus, I got about $2.5 million from a grant with our support with our state reps that's going to put computers in about 100 police cars in the county, so that an officer can sit there and run a license plate or type a criminal complaint, type a search warrant without having to go back to the station. And he can search individuals and find out, oh, this guy was arrested last night in Center Township.
That doesn't already exist?
No, most departments can't afford that. And I'm also going to be putting all those departments in the same shared record management system, so that when someone is found near cars were broken into last night in Center Township, when somebody sees the same person in Harmony Township the next night, you can put the pieces together if they're on shared databases, shared record management system.
I want to combine a couple of things. You're talking about phone forensics and people being able to trace. Talk about search warrants a little bit, because I've seen stories where they don't get a search warrant issued for one guy with the phone. They get a search warrant issued for an area, and then they go through all the phones. As a DA, I want your thoughts on that.
I really don't have the ability to do that. That federal can sometimes do that. What we can do is with a federal search warrant, I can go in and I can do what's called a geofence, where you're looking at, draw a 200-meter circle around where this body was found. Give me a short time period, say an hour. What cell phones were in that 200-meter circle during that time period? And then you can go into a criminal database and say, these phone numbers, have these phones been associated with any defendants, any crimes, any other cases, and put those pieces together? Or identify the owner of that phone through a search warrant.
How difficult, How much more difficult is it to get a search warrant for an area than for a person? What's expected of you? I know you have to talk a judge into probable cause. Is that right?
We have to establish probable cause for
Okay.
the judge to be able to give a search warrant like that. It's the same thing for if I take a phone from you, say you were caught in a burglary.
Wasn't caught, but go ahead.
Okay, so but if I want to open your phone, I need a search warrant of your person. I need a search warrant to get into that phone.
Right.
And then once I get into the phone, I may need to get another search warrant to get your call data from the cloud, from Verizon or whatever. So it's multiple stages of that investigation. And that's what I've trained my detectives in doing is we've gotten great training from the federal government and other agencies so that our detectives can do those complex searches. And that's how we solve murders so fast because we're able to get into the data. We know how to get the DNA, the phone data, the mapping that's required, our license plate cameras.
Yeah.
Phenomenal help in solving major violent crimes.
Are the phone companies open to helping you, or are they hesitant? How is that? If you go to AT&T and say, we want every cell phone 100 yards in each direction from this time to this time, do they go, oh, glad to help, or do they at least pretend to try and protect? Because that's the pitch, and you know that, David. We protect your data. Do they?
Some of them do, some of them don't.
Okay.
That's why that's a lot of times, that's a federal question. It's not so much the phone companies. It's the owners of other apps on a phone. You have 50 apps running on your phone right now.
Easy.
And people are using different apps to communicate, different cash apps, different Waze apps, different ways to instant message. And some of those owners of those less used apps are more likely to resist a subpoena. We've had several drug death cases where the drug dealer wasn't using standard text messaging. He was using one of these gaming apps, right? But that's how he's communicating. Hey, I've got cocaine. Hey, I want to buy some. And where am I going? If I can't get that phone from the individual,
right,
then I need to be able to go to that app company and with a subpoena, get that information from the app company.
Why are the smaller app companies more hesitant?
Because they're in California, they don't care about what happens in Beaver County. I have no way to enforce that subpoena.
And they know that.
And they know that. Yeah.
Does a burner phone even present itself as relevant anymore? Because when I was a kid, that's how you knew somebody was up to something. They had a burner phone.
That's really not a problem anymore. Phones have so much information on them, and having the phone itself is helpful because we can go into the phone with a search warrant and get all the data we need. But if we don't have the phone, I can still get the data from the carrier. I may not get the content of a text, right? That's on the phone.
Right.
But I know that you texted this guy.
You know that I texted this number at this time and the respond text came back at this time.
Exactly.
And you can piece it together.
Exactly.
What is your favorite part of your job? Must be something because you're running to keep your job. Your favorite part?
I think we have provided phenomenal drug treatment and mental health treatment for the community that is causing a third to half of our crimes. And by providing better treatment as part of our sentencing, we're able to reduce recidivism and maybe help people rebuild their lives. When you are at a gas station and somebody walks up and says, if you hadn't forced me into the Vivitrol program, I wouldn't be back with my wife and kids, and I wouldn't have just bought a house. That changes your life. And we're doing that by providing good mental health and good drug treatment, which wasn't done 8 years ago.
Yeah,
we have created that model in the county with the work of the Drug Abuse Coalition and some phenomenal mental health and drug treatment people in the county. We have put together a network of treatment and sentencing regimes in the jail and in the community. We're saving lives, helping people rebuild their lives. That's very rewarding.
How has it helped the recidivism rate? I mean, I'm talking about in terms of numbers.
We have one of our programs that it's my drug diversion program, which is about 400 people have gone through it in the last 6 years.
All right.
And we have a 65% success rate where you take somebody who.
That's huge.
It's huge. Most drug treatment programs have about a 10% success rate. So about 65% of these people, they're first-time drug users, first-time arrestees. We provide intensive support for a 6-month period, and if they're successful, I dismiss the case at the end of the day. And they remain involved in treatment, often using grant funds and other insurance issues to keep them in treatment. And the recidivism rate is like 5%, and the success rate of them completing the program and not reoffending is like 65%.
Is that an easier pitch these days than it was 8 years ago? 8 years ago, you know this. If you did drugs or you broke the law, you went to jail. It didn't matter why.
Right.
There was no discussion about it was looked as very soft, wishy-washy to defer somebody to a program.
But that all changed when we started having people dying of fentanyl overdoses in McDonald's parking lot or in the library bathroom. When we had 100 people plus die in 2017 from fentanyl overdoses, people woke up to the fact that we needed to solve the problem. And we had a lot of support from police, first responders, mental health world, schools. Schools would never let you come in and talk about drugs.
Correct. No.
Now, we're in there we're in every school system every year talking to from 6th graders up about what's in that vape pen and what's in that pill that they might be getting on the street.
Do you have concerns about legalization of marijuana?
Absolutely.
Why?
It's terrible.
Okay.
Because the people who push it, like our former lieutenant governor, and we hope and pray that he's able to get through his current health issues.
Yeah, lightheaded.
Right. Let's hope that's all it is. But they're still thinking 1970s marijuana, that you could smoke a joint and it was 15 or 20% THC.
This ain't your grandpa's weed.
No, now it's 95% pure because they've been pouring millions of dollars of technology and botany into it. It's great stuff, and the old stuff wasn't addictive. The new stuff changes the mind of a young person. It causes a chronic user forgetfulness, mental health issues, depression. The new stuff is addictive. And we are finding dramatic changes in the way people function. People are going to lose their jobs because if you're smoking the new stuff the way you used to smoke the old stuff, you cannot function years down the road. It's changing people. And the number of drug DUIs has skyrocketed.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Is there a machine? I know that there have been machines made, but I haven't seen any uniformity. How do you test for a driving under the influence if it's weed?
We have 2 ways to do it. We have I help pay several police departments using my drug funds,
right?
Seize drug funds, pay for training of officers who can do a different version of roadside testing to identify whether this person has drugs in their system. The best way is a blood draw and send it to the lab.
Mm-hmm.
That costs $300 to $400 per lab test.
Wow.
And it often takes 3 or 4 months. Again, I got a grant. It's down to like 2 weeks, but still, but if they refuse the draw, then we get a search warrant. It's a pain, but there is no magic device to test for marijuana or cocaine in your system.
So it's not like alcohol. If you pull me over and I refuse because you think I've been smoked up, if I refuse, that doesn't automatically bust my license like drinking?
Right. I'm going to get a search warrant.
Okay.
To require you to let us draw your blood. And if you refuse the search warrant, then you have a refusal. Yeah, but we do that all the time with search warrants for people who don't want blood drawn.
Beaver County District Attorney David Lozier has been my guest. He's running for re-election. Thank you for choosing us to come in and make the announcement. I got about a minute left. What did I not ask you that you wanted to yell about?
You talked about the state of the county.
Absolutely.
And I just want to endorse that. What we've got right now are 3 commissioners that are working very well together. They're supporting law enforcement. They're supporting my drug task force, my SWAT team, my office with the reforms that we needed at my office. They're working very well together to move the county forward in in this century, not last century, in this century. And all the row officers, like the sheriff and I, we work very well together with the commissioner. So again, it's not kumbaya. They sometimes disagree with each other,
Right.
but they can communicate. And that is amazing in 2023.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, sir.
God bless you.
Thank you for coming in. Who's running against you, you know? Anybody?
I have heard nothing.
I have heard none. All right, Sergeant Schultz, right on.
But the assumption is I'm going to have an opponent.
David Lozier is good. That's always good for a race to have a second person just for something to watch. And David Lozier is running for district attorney again. He announced it right here on Teleforum.
Tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, presented by Heritage Valley Health System. Weekdays from 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's an all-new show on Beaver County Radio, where Mike discusses the issues important to Beaver County. There's also special guests, weather, sports with Matt Durzik, and news every half hour with Curtis Walsh. So tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, weekdays, right here on Beaver County Radio.
I'm Ben Affleck, and I want to thank you for joining me and supporting Paralyzed Veterans of America. Our vets need you.
My name is Jennifer Steele. I'm a U.S. Army vet. I served in Iraq, and I have MS. I'm here at home with my 12-year-old son. I'm in a wheelchair, and I can't leave the house because I have a compromised immune system. My biggest fear is that if I came down with COVID-19 and it didn't kill me, it would cause me further disabilities. My aunt and my sister have come down with symptoms, and I'm afraid. My sister is my best friend in this whole world, and if anything ever happened to her, I'd be lost.
Our veterans fought for us. Let's fight for them. Join me and help fight for them by supporting Paralyzed Veterans of America.
I am so grateful for the PVA. They're making sure that we have all of the food and supplies that we need right now. I want to ask you to please send whatever you can to helppva.org. Thank you, and God bless you.
Hi, I'm Jenna Ushkowitz. Since before the beginning of recorded time, animals have protected, comforted, sustained, and given us their unconditional love. It's time we repaid the favor. American Humane, the country's first national humane organization, encourages everyone who loves animals to do 4 simple things to help those who have helped us so much. Adopt from a local rescue or shelter, help animals in disasters by becoming an American Humane Rescue Volunteer, be sure to choose only humanely raised foods, and help preserve and protect Earth's wonderful, endangered, and rapidly disappearing creatures by supporting American Humane certified institutions. By doing these 4 simple things, you can make a world of difference for the animals who have done so much for us for so long. Visit AmericanHumane.org to find out how you can pay back in some small way the beautiful animals who enrich our lives every day.
Beaver County Radio, 95.